So just as you grow, slowly putting the pieces in place that I want this charity to be able to run without me. Not so that I can just sit on a beach and still take a salary. I won't take a salary at that point.
It'll be the legacy stuff, isn't it?
It'll be that the family's still going to get that support.
So I'm Matthew Cox and I'm a business strategist. I've run and grown multiple businesses over the last 15 or so years. Join me on my journey with helping other entrepreneurs figure out what their goals are, how to set them and how to achieve them. So our guest today, he runs this super charity. It helps kids all over the place, parents, the rest of it, offering them respite trust. But he's got a dooming problem coming on the horizon. They really need to try and relocate, maybe secure that property for their charity for a long-term legacy. So let's see if we can help Gavin today in securing that long-term legacy, getting that kind of worry off of this back of this kind of expiring lease that they've got, and really look at personal branding and a bunch of other things. So let's get into the podcast. Right, we're here today, everybody, with Gavin Fisher from the Children's Respite Trust, who is going to join us today, and we're going to have a look at some of his goals and things that he wants to achieve over the next kind of 1 to 10 years, and do the classic, like, what is the hurdles that are going to stop you doing that? Before we get into that, one of the things that I really like to ask all the guests is, what were you like as a young Gavin, as a young child, that kind of adolescent 10-year-old through to kind of 18? What was that Gavin like?
Oh, what was he like? He was quite shy.
Yeah,
he was definitely quite shy. He was somebody who was still trying to find his place in the world. I think I was just very uncomfortable, awkward. Going off, leaving school and going to college to do my A-levels, I found a group that I really fitted in with. And then on to university, the same again. And I think I slowly but surely found my way in the world. But up until that point, I was a shy lad, awkward.
Keep yourself to yourself.
Absolutely awkward teenager, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So how did that lead on to kind of the Children's Respite Trust and what you do now? And then
it didn't.
It didn't
initially. No, I followed a career. I ended up in the charity sector because my first job was in the charity sector. It was an admin role, and but I ended up working for a charity in Newmarket. It was an animal charity, and I knew someone up there who had a child with a disability. So a friend of mine had this son with a degenerative condition. It's called spinal muscular atrophy.
Okay.
Where which is essentially a muscle wasting disease. Now, we'd fundraised for this carer to go in and give the mum some respite, give her a break. She'd be able to go out for the night. And the carer was asking what the routine was that she would be taking over. She said, so the mum explained everything, and there was a whole list of things. My jaw just drops when I hear all of this sort of stuff, and it was dropping with everything that she was adding. And the one that really caught my ear was his sleep apnea. And lots of people have sleep apnea. It's where you stop breathing at night. But generally, you catch yourself and you start breathing again. These days, if it's really bad, somebody would have an apnea mat or maybe some other form of equipment.
Yeah.
Anyway, the nurse carer asked, "Okay, what do you do when you stop breathing? What resuscitation equipment do you have?" She said, "Oh, I don't have anything like that. I'll give him mouth to mouth." And I just thought this was amazing because, it transpired that a shake or whatever would be suitable a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Some of the time it would be full on CPR. And she said it only happens half a dozen times a night. And I thought that was plenty, but it turned out it was more like 2 or 3 times that. She didn't want to lay it on too thick. And the next question, of course, was, well, how do you know when he stopped breathing? What sort of alarm call or monitoring system do you have? He said, I don't have anything like that. I sleep with my hand in his chest or my head in his chest. I kind of intuitively know when the movements stop going up and down. I wake up and I give him mouth to mouth. And I just thought this was amazing. I spoke to her afterwards and just said, how did it go? And she said, oh, it's a luxury. I've got some sleep. And I know it's something that we all say, but for her it was a genuine luxury to get a bit of sleep. I can't imagine that, good night's sleep is absolute necessity for me to be able to function. But that's what respite is about. It's about people having the chance to do something that the rest of us take for granted.
Yeah.
So that was way before the Children's Respite Trust existed, but that kind of got me into this world.
Morphed into that. So the Children's Respite Trust, tell us a bit about that. It's been going for a few years now, hasn't it? Quite a long.
Yeah, 14 years now. Yeah. So I was involved in another charitable project, which was building a respite centre garden. So it was an existing centre run by the NHS, and it had a bit of a wasteland for a garden. And I was involved in a project to turn it into this sensory garden. A beautiful job, loads of fundraising, and the grand opening, we had the mayor and the great and the good there, and one of the mums said to me, "This is all well and good, but we can never get in here." And it started off a conversation about the lack of capacity. So it transpired there was capacity for about 30 to 40 people in this centre, and there was about 500 in the catchment area that fitted the criteria for accessing it. So I ended up helping her with a couple of other people, again raising some money. Did the only thing I knew, go and raise some money. Raise some money for her son to go and stay in a private respite centre, and the nearest one we could find was in Clacton in Essex, far end of Essex, and again, I had no idea about introductory visits or anything else that was involved, but it happened and it was successful in the end. And she got a break. And then somebody else came up and said, "You know what you did for her? You couldn't help me as well, could you?" And then another and another.
And another.
So 14 years ago, with a group of people that became the trustees of the charity, we said, "Well, you know what, we need to set this up as something proper."
Yeah.
We need to turn it
into a registered charity.
Into a registered charity, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. It's such a lovely journey, and I love how people's kind of journeys pan out in life and things, and those things that kind of affect you and make you make those decisions. Yours is obviously extremely powerful, and the only thing I've got in connection with it, I remember Brighton and Hove Council said they were running this scheme where they would help some landlords. We had property that we were looking to rent out, and obviously sometimes kind of council tenants get a bit of a bad rap. I don't really have that issue with it, so I was like, okay, that's cool. Come around and have a look. And I turned up late to this viewing that the council had arranged, and I couldn't get up the stairwell for the amount of people that had come to view this. Just a two-bedroom flat, but just one flat. And it just made me feel like I needed to do something. I know obviously we're renting the property out, so we benefit from that, but it just made me feel like I don't all these people, they're all in sheltered accommodation or Airbnbs or bed and breakfast or whatever, because they're in this they've fallen between this gap of not really qualifying for housing benefit, but also at the same time they probably had a bit of money, or they might have had a job, or their partners left them and then they can't afford the rent on their own. So they weren't homeless, if you like, you're not rehousing, but that sort of in between, to stop them becoming homeless. And it was just mad. I couldn't get up the stairwell, and I just thought, and these people were pitching to me oh, I'm really good and I'm clean and I don't have any pets or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, this is makes my heart bleed, really.
Yeah.
And so it just made me want to work with the council. We don't have loads of property in comparison to some developers and that, but it made me want to work with them, and pretty much exclusively all our tenants are through that system now, apart from the ones where they're in areas where they don't cover, it's Brighton and Hove, and they only really cover up to New Haven and over to Shoreham, but so anything in Seaford or Eastbourne is not covered by that system, but everything else is rented through them, because I just thought, what a brilliant system. And it's nice feeling like you're helping a bit.
Absolutely. Well, it's amazing how many people in the world are caught between two stools. That's exactly the people that we're supporting. They're told their children aren't unwell enough to receive whatever form of support might be available to them otherwise. But the children clearly can't cope in mainstream school, or the pressures on the family are still absolutely enormous. So who's going to step in and help them? And as you say, it's just nice to be able to make that difference.
Even if it's just a small bit that you're helping them, it's just nice. There are people, and
no one else will give us a chance, because we don't earn enough money, or we claiming the benefits or something, and we've been in a bed and breakfast for like 6 months.
Wow.
It's a 1-bedroom room, and they've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
And you just think, what a poor upbringing for the children as much as anybody else. It's not an environment I would want to be in.
And it's a roll of the dice who ends up in that situation. Nobody's intentionally found themselves in that way. They've something's happened to create it.
Yeah, I mean, I had one guy whose his wife walked out on him and went back to their home country, whatever that was, and left him with the kids, and he couldn't hold his job down anymore. And the domestic violence people, some people have got divorced and separated. It's all over. But it's just nice to be able to kind of like help those people a bit, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely
absolutely.
Pulls on your heartstrings a bit, doesn't it?
Oh, God,
So, obviously, you've been going for 14 years, and I guess things are fairly steady, but like any business, you've got goals and probably some hurdles in doing those. So on your form, we ask you a bit about what your day-to-day looks like, and you've got down here that you spend less time on the hands-on today, but obviously you missed that a bit. You tried to shift off some stuff in the nursery to remind myself why you do what you do, and I think that's a really good approach. Often I go and try and help out on the what we regard as the shop floor, essentially, just to kind of see. I think it's good to see what people are doing as well, and make sure your core values and your ethos is still there.
Definitely, I think it's they say every day is a school day. You're always learning, and if you don't expose yourself to every aspect of the business, then how can you possibly be picking up on that?
I used to love that show where the big boss would go down and work on the shop floor, an undercover boss or secret boss or whatever it was called, where they go and they work in the warehouse or something, and then they'd be like, "This system is utter crap."
Yes.
Who implemented that? What, you have to tick 7 boxes before you can send the order out or something? And then you're like, well, head office did that. And it's like, that realisation, I think, is really useful and missing from a lot of businesses, especially as you grow. Yeah. So a lot of your time spent on governance of HR issues, facilities, all that kind of stuff. Do you think you've built a business? It's neither for you. It's slightly different with a charity than...
It is. You're never going to have a nest egg with a charity that you can then sell on. I've built something that I can be proud of at the end, and that's...
Yeah.
And the main thing is that it carries on afterwards.
It's more of a legacy thing than an actual thing to sell, and you can be proud of that. So what are your goals for the next year? You've written down, we can still make a little more use of the capacity at the respite centre, but we'll need a couple more staff to reach that point, and therefore we need to raise money needed to fund them. And then more medium to longer term goals, I suppose. We have 4.5 years left on the lease with a 3-year break clause. So we need to start sourcing the market for a new property. It's a bit chicken and egg, as we could launch an appeal to buy something, but people need to see what they're buying into. So we need a property before fundraising. And then the long-term goal, like everyone, is retirement at some point. You don't want to do it forever. That's what you've written.
There needs to be an exit strategy.
An exit strategy eventually. I mean, I suppose it's a case of, obviously with the growth side of things and taking more staff on, it's hard because it's organic growth at the same time, isn't it?
You can't.
You do a lot of events and things like that, and obviously there are a lot of charities anyway, so it's always fighting for that.
And it's becoming tougher as well, I think. We're just looking at the golf day, which is a month today, and we're slightly lower on teams than where we'd want to be, so I need to get out there and start telling everyone all about the golf day. I'll be doing that and then not telling them about the event that's coming up after that, or the event that's coming after that. So it's, there's so much competition to...
Yeah, and you do that yourself, don't you, primarily, like in terms of event...
The promotion. I've got one colleague who is responsible for managing the events. A part-time colleague who does an excellent job of that, and one colleague who is part-time on the care side. She manages our siblings club and part-time marketing. So doing that sort of social media and the MailChimps and that kind of promotion. I spend an awful lot of time, as you know, networking and trying to bang the drum, basically.
Yeah. So I suppose in terms of growing, obviously things like marketing yourself and stuff it's a fairly saturated market. But I guess if you can pick out those like USPs that you do as a charity is really where they are. And I know you do a lot of networking, and those kind of low hanging fruits are like much easier to grasp, like ticket sales and things like that to events and things. But I suppose that's always well and good, but it's like you're being the business development manager essentially, but you're being the marketeer as well, isn't it? So it's quite a kind of tough job. And you mentioned about HR and IT facilities and things. It's like very bitty, isn't it?
It is, and as the charity has grown, I've been able to recruit people to take little bits of that off here and there, because ultimately, when you're the founder of an organisation, to begin with, you do everything.
Yeah.
And at what point do you get to a stage where if I go under a bus tomorrow, is the charity going to survive?
Yeah.
And I think we're well past that now, I'm pleased to say. But that's not to say it wouldn't be bumpy. And we slowly got things in place where other people are able to take responsibility for, say, the IT or whatever. We talked about HR. So one of the things that we've got the capacity to do as charities is make use of voluntary support. And one of the key routes for that is our board of trustees. So they're like a board of non-exec directors. Entirely voluntary. They are my bosses, effectively. They are ultimately responsible for the charity. And we noticed that we were a bit deficient in certain skill sets, so we decided to try and bring some others on board, one of which was HR. And so, we cast the net out to try and find someone. We got, there's a guy called Ed Howarth, and he's the... try and get his title right. He's basically head of HR for East Sussex County Council, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, okay.
Might be several heads of HR, I don't know. But, he's at that level. And that's really brilliant, valuable experience to be able to bring into a charity. And it's not like he's then become our HR department. There's still lots to do, but you've got that knowledge and that advice and that backup.
You can pull onto, really.
Absolutely, which is really valuable. So just as you grow, slowly putting the pieces in place that I want this charity to be able to run without me. Not so that I can just sit on a beach and still take a salary. I won't take a salary. It'll be
the legacy stuff, isn't it?
It'll be the families are still going to get that support.
Exactly. So I just wanted to interrupt quickly here. I hope you're really enjoying the podcast guest today, but did you know that you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, various other sites like that, and you can also listen to us on all major streaming services as well. You may already be listening through one of those things, but look at the other avenues that you can do us. You can see us in physical form if you're listening in audio, or if you want to just listen as you're driving along in the car, you can go to things like Spotify or Apple Podcast and listen to us there. So please don't forget to check those out. Please always like and subscribe to all the channels, share them about and the rest of it, and that will help grow the audience. And then eventually we'll have a massive amount of people that are always really going to get involved, and it's a nice big entrepreneurial hub. So if you want to contribute to that, head on over to those other channels, press the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. Right, we'll get back to our guest now. Right, so I thought we'll move on a little bit to kind of your kind of 3 to 5 year goals, and the bit that probably kind of excites me the most, or maybe I can help you with the most. You're on about your lease and the property and the rest of it. So tell me what the current situation is, because you're up in Uckfield at the moment, aren't you?
Yep, so it's the old Friday Advertiser print works. It's where they started in the 70s, and it was then derelict for a while. We took it over, must be about 8 years ago now, something like that. And we've got probably about 4 years left on the lease now, maybe just over. There's a break clause at 3 years. And we're getting too big for it, so we need to be thinking about what the next step is. And what I was saying on that form was that it's a little bit chicken and egg, because as a charity, you can do a big capital appeal for a project as long as it's, you know, valuable and worth it, and all the rest of it. People want to support it. You've got the capacity to do that, rather than having to borrow and trade up. But you need something tangible to start with. So if you're doing a capital appeal for a new scanner or a machine that goes ping, you can show people the brochure pictures, and people can see exactly what it is they're buying. Saying, well, we need to create this amazing new centre, and it's going to have this, it's going to have that, it's going to have the other. Yeah, we can't tell you what it looks like, where it's going to be. Anything like this is a tough sell. So realistically, we need to be, what we've for a while now been having conversations with people in the property world about how we can get something, whether it's on the basis where it's rent to buy, or even just there's a charitable element to it where they would let us market it as a project with a view to us then purchasing it later. I mean, the ridiculously successful charities will at some point have had some form of windfall that will have got them to a new level, and sometimes that is a property. I'm not putting anywhere in a plan that we're going to be that lucky, because that is just luck. So
I think it's probably it is luck, but calculated at the same time. Like somebody in that business would have done that.
You're right. It's calculated insofar as they've networked in the right places. They've built up their support levels to the extent that somebody that rich had the money to do that. Or that passed away and left something in their estate to the charity. So you're right. There is work involved in doing that. From where we are at the moment, small charity with resources we've got at our disposal, I'm not going to stick it in the business plan that hopefully within the next few years somebody's just going to leave as a property.
When you say you've spoken to agents and stuff, I don't know kind of at what level that is. Who have you been speaking to?
Well, variety of people. There's only one person that we've been speaking to who's got quite a lot of property himself. And that tends to be sort of industrial parks and that kind of thing, business parks.
I'm just wondering if you spoke to someone at one of the fairly large firms like Stiles Williams or Savills or somebody like that they would probably have a department or a remit that somebody somewhere will be in a position to either do you what they call like a lease option, where you would lease it. You'd agree a price today. We're going to pay XYZ for it, but we're not going to buy it for like 5 years. We'll service the mortgage and any debts on it or whatever. But you have that option to buy it in 5 years' time. They will probably be able to tell you if they've got any clients that have got that kind of option to it.
Okay.
And equally so, they would probably be able to tell you if there are some, they've probably got, I mean, in the commercial world, so like it's the same for us with residential or commercial, you always have like the people that you've had for a long time, your clients, and then we'll always have this kind of list of like, I know in 3 years' time they're going to want to retire or they're going to want to move on or whatever. And the agent's job is like to line those people up for when that comes. So they'll be looking and thinking, we need people like you because we've got Bob over here or Susan or somebody who in about 2 years' time, they've already told us they want to get out of the market, but they think that interest rates are going to go down and there's going to be like a bit of a resurgence for property or something in about 2 years' time. So they'd like to market it then. And that fits with your remit possibly, and then they can then introduce you at an early stage. You can go and have a look and you go, look, at the moment it's like, I don't know, a warehouse for storage or something, but you know, there's no reason why you can't put a mezzanine floor in here and use it for your facilities. But the beauty of that is that you've already got your foot in the door. And then it's not going to get marketed to anybody else, because the first person they're going to come to is you and say, are you in a position to do a lease agreement or possibly get some funding to purchase it? And even that will allow you to then go to your kind of fundraisers and say, look, this is the building we've got. We've agreed with the landlord that they're retiring in a few years' time. We can then buy that building off of them, but we need, you know, £500,000 or whatever it might be as a deposit so that the mortgage payments are serviceable for us as a charity. And then we're also looking at £200,000 worth of investment to get the place kitted out, and that's going to allow us X, Y, Z. And then your job is then to really sell that, and then part of your legacy is you're going to leave behind the fact that they own that building, and then it's sustainable forevermore, isn't it?
Absolutely.
They're not beholden to landlords, rent increases or market fluctuations, get turfed out of your venue, that sort of stuff.
That's exactly the kind of arrangement we need. I guess the immediate task is finding those people. So you mentioned a couple of businesses there that I'd not approached.
Well, Styles, Howard Williams are probably the biggest in the southeast for like commercial stuff. There'll be lots of people. I mean, Hunt Commercial in Eastbourne, you probably come across them. He's not as big as those guys, but he does have a lot of contacts, Simon Hunt. I can introduce you if you want to. Jonathan at Savills is contact of ours. You know, they will have access to a lot of stuff. Clive Elman's, they're auctioneers as well, but they will take your call and be like, look, we'll add you to a list. So if someone comes to us and says, we want to auction stuff, but I'm not too fussed if it sells, they might say, well, actually, we've got this charity that would be interested in, you know, doing some sort of part buy arrangement off of you, or a lease option or something like that. They're very popular. We've bought a couple of businesses in the past where they've had the premise involved with the business. So you've got a trading business you're buying, but they own the building, but they're worried that we buy the trading business and then locate it somewhere else, and then they've got to find a tenant for the business. So they've ended up buying the property off of them. But we've just said, we can't buy the business and the property at once, so we'll have a lease agreement. We'll rent it off of you for 5 years, guaranteed, but we want to pay today's money for it in 5 years. So we're guaranteed we'll buy it off of you, but it's fixed. So we know that in 5 years' time, we've got to come up with that money in order to exercise our right to buy it. We always write the leases in such a way that it allows us to walk off, but not them. So we can, because you have to protect yourself a little bit. You could get to that point and go, actually, it's kind of worth less than what we thought, or the business has changed or whatever. So it allows us to walk off, but it is a commitment of some degree. We might often say, if we walk off, we'll pay you 10% of the market value for it. So there's like a fine for walking off. It gives us the flexibility to do that.
And if you're not in a position to go ahead, then what happens?
You could either negotiate and say we need another 5 years or whatever, it depends on that landlord, or they could say, I'm going to put it on the open market now because I want to get rid of it, then that's fine. Or if you say I don't want to go off, you could build sometimes we've had to build like a fine into it, so if we do walk off, we owe them 10% as a almost like an exit fee essentially. Generally speaking, we haven't really had to do that because in 5 years' time, the property's gone up in value anyway. So as long as we can muster up the money to fund it, then, you know, realistically, you can buy it. And then even if you go, it wasn't quite what we wanted to do strategically, we've made money on it because we're buying it under market rate. But the owner knows that they've got the rent secure for 5 years because you're a good tenant and you're going to pay that. And you're going to have spent money and invested it into the thing, so it'll probably be worth more anyway. So say if you just a bare factory, you then invest £200,000 into it, kitting it out with mezzanine floors and all that stuff. When it comes to value it, it's going to have that value added to it. So it's going to be worth more than what you've agreed to sell it. So say today you say it's £500,000, 5 years time it's worth 550, maybe 600, but you've added £200,000 worth of value by putting mezzanine floors in it and things. So then when you go to remortgage it, they might say it's worth 750, 800. And then you'll be able to pull some of that money out to even fund the purchase of it originally. So,
well, I mean, we feel that we've added incredible value to our current property, and it's not.
We won't
see any of that.
No, exactly. I think what you need to do is probably deal with the much bigger agents, because they tend to be the ones that I mean, you mentioned you had like a landlord that owned a bunch of property, but let's say he or she owns like 10 commercial warehouses and like maybe a few blocks of flats or something. Generally, it's the next step up person from that who owns like 100 commercial units. They will be dealing with your Savills, and they'll be the ones that will be like, do you know what? As part of my business's remit for the next 10 years is to dispose of £10 million worth of property, and that fits that thing. And if I can get that agreement in, I've kind of ticked that one box, if you like. So there are lots of other agents that do that. Those are the ones that just spring to mind because I've got contacts there. But there are lots of UK-wide ones, and you'll see them crop up every now and then, and they've probably got something near where you are. I'd imagine at some point in the next 18 months or so, something will come up. It will be distressed. Somebody will want something. Business owners as well, they deal with selling the business and also selling the property as well. So if you're like, I don't know, an indoor play centre or something like that, and you fall on hard times, but you own the building as well as the indoor play centre, those sort of big boys are the only people that can generally deal with both types of transactions.
Right.
So that's where people will go. And if you've got like an accountant or something, they often recommend, like, if you've got to liquidate some assets or something, that you go to one of the bigger firms to deal with it, because they'll be able to deal with it quickly.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Are you able to introduce me to any of them?
Yeah, I can definitely introduce you to some of those people. We'll do that. We'll sort you out with
Thank you.
And I think they would be able to assist you with that. They might not have anything immediately that's suitable, but I reckon stuff will come along over time, and you can just look at them. You'll probably look at 10 before you find one that's any good, and then you've got to structure a deal, and so that might not do. So you're going to have to put some time aside to doing this. I mean, I generally put aside probably a morning a week to look at like investments and things like that, like trying to look at businesses that we could acquire, going on Companies House, doing a bit of research, going, okay, they're 60 and there's only 2 members of staff and they might be a bit worn out by that business, or looking at businesses that sell businesses as well, like do deal with the transactions and stuff, see if they've got anything new come on their listings, property as well. I mean, we get lots of phone calls here from people exiting the buy-to-let market or just looking to sell things and the rest of it. So they're always good opportunities for us to pick up something cheap, because generally they're kind of trying to avoid agency fees. So they're just like, I want to sell it quickly and at low cost. So if I go,
are there a lot of people trying to exit the buy-to-let market these days?
Yeah, got a fair few, I think, because we went for a long period where people bought property in their own name, and then the government changed that and said you can't claim the interest on your mortgage payments off your tax bill. So, I mean, I've done videos on this for the channel, but basically if you've got £1,000 rent and your mortgage is £500, but you own it in your own name, you can't claim the £500 as tax deductible.
Right.
So you pay tax on the £1,000, which means that's 12 grand a year income. So if you earn £40,000 a year, you've now just been shoved into the higher rate tax band, because you've got to declare 12,000 and not 6,000, which is your true profit. If you own the property in a business name or a corporate name, then you can claim the interest. But the problem is to shift your whole portfolio to a limited company. It normally triggers stamp duty, or there are certain provisos that you can do where you can say to the government, look, this is a full-time job and therefore it is a business. It's not just like a side hustle. So you can transfer, but you have certain criteria to that, and then mortgage companies don't like it. So if you've got any mortgages on, you can't just transfer the property over into a limited company. So it's complicated. So a lot of people are putting out because it's not very tax efficient. For kind of cash flow wealth. It's good for wealth, long-term wealth building, but most people are interested in a mixture of both. And they've probably got to that age where they're like, I just want to get the equity out. I'll take the hit on the capital gains tax and sell the property, because I'm not really making any money out of it anymore. Yeah. I mean, I've got one that's in our name, which we made a mistake and we bought it. We were going to redevelop it and then sell it on, and we couldn't sell it, so we rent it out. We'll come back to selling it at some point. Tenant pays us £2,000 a month. It's a massive house, and the mortgage is £1,000, but I have to pay tax at 40% on the £2,000. Yeah. So I actually end up clearing about 150 quid out of it, out of the £2,000 that they send us, which doesn't even pay for the boiler when it blows up.
No. And you say you couldn't sell it initially, you'd intended to.
Yeah.
Why was that?
A lady called Liz Truss came along and decided to. We don't go too political.
She's still getting blamed for it.
Yeah, well, has she caused inadvertently or on purpose? Who knows? We'll never know. She caused a bit of a crash in the market, and then mortgage companies all started pulling out and the rest of it. So and that was right when we just finished it and we put it on the market.
It was just timing.
Yeah, so we couldn't sell it for about 3 months, so we just thought we'd rent it out rather than it just losing money. At least it's washing its face now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and what the beauty of that is the glass half full thing. We might have a lot of equity stuck in that property, and the tenant, we're not really making that money, and we can't sell it for what we want to sell it for right now. So some would think to yourselves, oh, that's a bit of a disaster. But actually, what you can do is get a second charge against that property, so you can borrow against the equity, so we can still leverage it and use it. It's just I don't have it as physical cash. So obviously it costs to leverage it that way, so it's not as efficient, but it's not like it's locked away and I can't touch it. I can leverage against it. So lots of clever things you can do with property and borrowing and stuff. Brilliant. Well, I hope that's been really helpful.
I'll take that on board. Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Before we completely wrap up, was there anything you wanted to ask at all, or?
I've been asking away, haven't I?
Been asking away.
You know, you've grown this business pretty quickly, as far as I can see, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Go on, what's your one tip?
Well,
I mean, everything's immediately transferable into the charity world, but just for
I
generally.
would say managing growth is difficult because your business gets pulled all in different directions. Having lots and lots of sources of income, or as many as you can, will help you through the cash flow times. So a little bit of money from a lot of people, as the phrase goes, is a good thing to have. Trying to iron out peaks and troughs as well, like recognising when they happen and then trying to figure out a way of them not happening, or doing something so that the peaks and troughs aren't so violent. Those sort of things I think are the kind of key tips. I mean, I've been doing this full time 9 years, but the firm's been going since 2010. I just did it as a side hustle before. And managing staff and making sure you do that business development manager role as quickly as you can, because that your business, you love it. So awesome. So how do people get hold of you then if they want to come and have some respite or join the queue or whatever? I'm sure you have a queue of people.
Sadly, there is quite some waiting list for respite with the trust, but get in touch anyway. The very least we can do is advise you and add you to the waiting list. It's www.crtcharity.org if you want to get involved in any of the events. As you know yourself, we do an amazing ball every year, a golf day, comedy nights, anything like that. We'd love to have people on board. But taking your example of a little bit of money from a lot of people rather than big chunks,
big push.
I think more people we can get involved, the better.
Yeah, brilliant. So if anybody wants to reach out, that's how you get hold of them. If there is anybody that perhaps is in the property world as well that maybe might want to reach out and see if they can do any collaboration or work with you, that would be useful as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it's super having you on, and I'll get those contacts for you and maybe come back in a year and see how you get on, really.
Love to.
Brilliant. All right.
Thanks ever so much.
Thanks.
Cheers.
So I hope that was really useful, and you can see Gavin has really hopefully taken away there. We've got some useful contacts, which I'll make sure that we're sent over to Gavin, and you can see how he gets stuck in that kind of I've gone to the local agent, or I know a property guy or whatever, and it's really good to just be able to impart that knowledge on him and just say to him, go to the bigger agents and give him some kind of creative thinking. You can see that he was already touching on lease options and things like that. Got lots of videos on those about how you can buy and sell property and the rest of it, so go and check all of those out. And we did a whole massive thing about our own portfolio. There is a 10-part series on that, how we went from buying one all the way to up to where we have over £4 million worth of property. So go and check those out as well, and you might learn some lessons about how to be creative with finding property and the rest of it. I really hope that Gavin makes sure that his charity is secure and really, really solidifies that long-term kind of stability for them by owning their own premise. So if you like this video, don't forget to comment below, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, do all that kind of stuff, share it. We've got Instagram, you can head over to us. It's literally just matthewcox.enterprise. So you can find us on there, or you can get us through the YouTube channel or through the links in the description. We've got the same on Facebook as well. And of course, if you do want to come on this podcast, then all you need to do is head over to our website, matthewcox.biz. Fill in the form there, you can get on. It's absolutely free. You get all of this footage. You can use it on your own socials, whatever you want. I just love talking to business owners about their journey and what they're going to do with themselves and trying to have that kind of mates down a pub type chat. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Head over to the website if you want to come on it. Have a look at the other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.